Today I have something really exciting for you. I was lucky enough to speak with one of the Vivo writers, Quiara Alegria Hudes, and she co-wrote Vivo with the one and only Lin-Manuel Miranda. She also worked on In the Heights with him, so clearly she is extremely talented, and I had an absolute blast talking to her. Now, if you've already seen my Vivo review, you know how much my family and I enjoyed this movie. One of our favorite parts about this movie was Gabby, who is actually based on her little sister, which she talks a lot about in this interview. I hope you enjoy that and where her inspiration came from working with Lin-Manuel Miranda, talking about the Everglades and the Spoonbill, and we even get into an epic adventure that she went on herself, since this movie is all about epic adventures. After all, it's a little bit of a romance story as well. Listen, Vivo comes to Netflix on August 6th, and you guys don't want to miss it, but for now, let's check out my interview with Quiara. Hey, Tessa from MamasGeeky here. Thank you so much for stopping by my YouTube channel. Well, anyway, thank you so much for taking the time today. I super appreciate it. We love Vivo in this house. Like, my girls sing the words to every song constantly. They keep saying, last week, they're like, when's embargo break so I can talk to my friends about it? I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm raising too little. I'm like, you can tell them to watch it. It's okay. Just don't talk too much about it. Like, okay. So can you talk a little bit about how you became involved in Vivo?
Yeah, I was working on In the Heights with Lynn. We were collaborating on the stage show at that time, and we always were sharing the other stuff we were working on together. And so that Vivo was an original piece. He was working on some songs for it. And then years later, when Hamilton hit really big and studios were coming to him saying, what else you got? He had that kind of in a drawer. And he had told me when he was working on, especially on Moana, that he thought I would in particular enjoy the process of animation because of the collaborative nature of it. And so, yeah, so we started working on Vivo together then.
That's awesome. And what drew you to really want to work on this besides working with Lynn again?
What drew me was the opportunity. So when it came to me, the characters of Vivo and Andres already existed, and I loved them so much. I was very excited to continue to write for them. But I was also excited that I was like, I felt this like invitation and opportunity to bring in a very different energy and to cut into that like traditionalism with something very the word punk rock is coming to my head, even though that's not the genre of music that is Gabby's song, but just something much more wild and unhinged and like not interested in tradition, basically. And so the opportunity for contrasts was super exciting to write out of, and then what that became, that was just like an artistic instinct, but what that became was an odd couple adventure story.
Yeah. So Gabby, speaking of Gabby, she's just absolutely amazing. My girls totally related to her. My youngest daughter plays the drums, so she was immediately like, Gabby's my best friend. So I heard, I think Kirk told me that she's actually related or inspired by your sister.
She's inspired by my baby sis, who was born when I was 13. And I was always a somewhat reserved and quiet person. Like, I'm a writer. Like, I'm the quiet one in the corner. I mean, seriously, I was there when my sister is Gabby, when Gabby was born. And it's like she came into the world looking for the party. And if the party wasn't there, she was going to create the party. I mean, I honestly remember this like the day she was born, there was this vibe. And it was through her that I learned to let loose. Like there was that moment in Keep the Beat where she's like, let loose, grandpa. Like that's what my little sister did for me. And I also saw that she struggled to fit into a world whose beauty standards and whose good girl standards, she was just never going to satisfy those standards. She was plus size from the time she was a kid. Her voice is loud. She's polite, like she has good manners, but she's opinionated and she's not reserved about sharing her opinions. And for all of these reasons, she was always told, like, you're not right or tone it down. But actually, that was the stuff that I thought made her tick and made her really special and made her really fun to hang out with. And I was like, you know, I want to share that character with the world. I think there's a lot there.
I love Gabby, and I think that a lot of little girls are going to be able to look up to her, and little boys, just be yourself. And I love that part of her in this movie. I think she's amazing, and I love her contrast with Vivo, which I think is so much fun. Can you talk a little bit about writing for a character that doesn't speak through English? Like that has to have some challenges with it.
Right. So in the movie, Vivo is a kinkajou, which is like a small rainforest mammal. And so it's weird. Like I never thought of this while watching animated movies, but animals and humans basically don't talk in animated movies. So there's all of these rules. And it took a lot of drafts, a lot of trial and error to discover when are we explaining the rules too much? When are we not explaining them enough and it becomes confusing? And so to have that little push and pull. And so sometimes the character of Vivo is like, me, 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 kind of does this little squeaking thing. And sometimes he speaks in words and other animals can understand him and we, the audience, can understand him. So that was just like a learning curve thing, sometimes you learn the right balance just through trying and trying and trying.
Yeah. Well, speaking of challenges too, a lot of this was finished off during a pandemic. So can you talk about the challenges that brought when you guys weren't able to really meet face to face as much?
I mean, the animators continued to work night and day on all of the different and beautiful animation styles. So they were able to continue, which I was really grateful for. But just personally speaking, one of the things that's really fun now I know about animation, but that I had always loved about writing musicals for the stage is that it's a collaborative art form. And I'm a writer, I'm reclusive, I spend most of my time alone, and I really savor those moments of collaboration when you get to be with artists in the room together. So that was really sad to miss out on that. Lynn and I are neighbors and we see each other very frequently, but Kirk lived in California. And so Kirk directed the movie and co wrote the screenplay with me. We had been flying back and forth to continue writing together and have collaborative meetings and have story meetings. And so we had grown quite close. You grow close, you make a family with the people you're collaborating with. And to get that was stopped. We literally didn't see each other in person once the pandemic hit. And I was just sad. I was bummed. I really missed that energy of creating in a room together.
Yeah, I can imagine that it makes quite a difference. But the movie is complete and it's coming out to Netflix. Can you talk about like Netflix picking that up? Because that's huge.
I know it kind of blows my mind. I mean, when my kids turn on Netflix and they see like a little Vivo banner up there, it's like, oh, yeah, Mama's geeky and Mama's a celebrity. They get very excited about this. So I love knowing that. I wish it could be in theaters and that people could experience it as a group, but I love knowing that it's going to be so accessible for so many kids and so many families. That makes me really happy.
Yeah, well, hopefully it ends up being, like a special screening at some point once the world is able to really do that, because I do think the music is a lot of fun and the story is a lot of fun. And I love that there's little moments of like environmental awareness and endangered species awareness. So can you talk about collaborating and including, the Everglades and all of that in here?
That was really cool. I went to the Everglades myself to do some research, and they also, Sony Animation and Kirk and the animation team, they engaged Everglades specialists. One of the fun things, I have some family that lives in Florida, and the spoonbill, like Floridians feel about the spoonbill, like I'm from Philly, like Philadelphians feel about the cheesesteak. It's like, that's ours. There's a deep pride. And so my Florida family was very stoked to see the spoonbill, which amazingly hasn't been animated yet. And they're
Cool.
gorgeous. They're really low hanging fruit to animate because they're so cool looking. Yeah, I learned a lot about nature and the all the ecosystems happening down there. We native species and foreign species, and at one point we thought we were going to lean into that as kind of a story theme, and then we felt ourselves pushing, and that didn't feel really organic to it. But the notion that lives on in the sand dollars, being like, he's not native, and he is not evolved to fight the apex predators in that ecosystem.
I love that. My daughters always talk about the sand dollars and well, they would say this and they would say that. They kind of really relate to them too. They think it's so much fun. So I like them learning a little bit about, endangered species through this movie as well. So what do you hope that families and children especially take away from Vivo?
I mean, I hope they have a darn good time. One of the things that I have an 8-year-old son, and one of the things that's been really interesting to see his response is during Gabby's song, Beat of My Own Drum. It's big and it's, wild child, and it's got so much moxie in it. But then there's the bridge where it all cuts out and it becomes what the animators called the chalkboard world. So it becomes darker and 2D figures are drawn in chalk. And my son loves that. And he really relates to that because he's an awesome kid, but he gets in trouble sometimes at school. He has difficulty modulating his behavior sometimes. And oftentimes that means we have a blast, but sometimes it means he gets in trouble. And then that bridge, like he does, like there's a lot going on inside him, that maybe we don't even notice. And he's always like, that's the inside world. That's the inside world. And so I just love that. That's one of many little details that I hope people relate to in the film.
I love that you said that because my youngest daughter is 8, and she says the same sort of thing. She sounds like you're describing my daughter. So she loves this movie. Like I said, we watched it. I can't even tell you how many times she keeps, Mom, what's your code for screener so I can watch it again? I'm like, all right, there you go. Watch it again. So just to close out, this is obviously about a bit of an epic, wild adventure. So can you tell me about one little epic adventure that you went on?
One epic adventure I went on. Wow. The first thing that comes to mind, this film does have a romance story at its heart, and I am a hopeless romantic, and I also have a love story in my life that's really beautiful, and luckily, I did get to play the song for this person. I got to say I love you, and so I just think of all the adventures we've taken together. Like I went overseas for the first time with this person, and we played Scrabble and played Hangman and played cards in beautiful plazas in Florence or Naples. And so that's one adventure I took.
Awesome. I love it. Well, thank you again so much for taking the time today. I can't wait for the world to see Vivo because it's just such a magical musical adventure of a film, and we love it in this house. So thank you for Vivo. It's incredible. Well, I hope you enjoyed that. Let me know your favorite part down below in the comments. I had an absolute blast talking with her, learning more about Vivo, the behind the scenes of Vivo. Of course, a little bit more about Lin-Manuel Miranda. And it was an absolute blast to chat with her. She's so nice. So again, let me know your thoughts about this interview down below in the comments. Be sure to give me a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on more videos like this one. You can follow me over on Instagram and Twitter. I'm at MamasGeeky over there. MamasGeeky. And don't forget, guys, check out Vivo when it comes to Netflix on August 6th. You don't want to miss this one. Thank you so much to all of my monetary supporters, my members here on YouTube, as well as my patrons. If you haven't joined yet, please consider doing so. We have some really awesome perks, including a monthly Zoom meeting where we get to talk face to face. Thank you again to everyone who supports me.